Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the U in Action Political Advocacy 101. We are very excited to have all of you, and thank you guys for being here. This is the second event of a three-part series that we are hosting throughout the school year, and it's designed with the intention to help students engage more deeply in their civic life and political advocacy as well. My name is Trevin Stevenson. I am the Associate Director of Government Relations with ASUU, which is the student government here at the university. ASUU, like I said, is your student government. We represent the voices of the students across campus, and we really advocate for the needs both with the university, locally, at the state, and national levels. Within ASUU, the government relations team, which is the team that I am on, we focus specifically on civic engagement, legislative advocacy, and ensuring that student voices are heard in the policymaking process as well. We'd like to really thank the Hinckley Institute of Politics for their partnership in making today's event possible. Obviously, they are here helping us host this, as well as they are speaking for this event as well, too. Their ongoing support plays a vital role in fostering informed and active citizenship here at the U. Today, we are going to be joined by the director of the Hinckley Institute of Politics and vice president of government relations of University of Utah, Jason Perry, who will start us off. And then after that, we will hear from Nicholas Cockrell, who is the managing director of community engagement here at the Hinckley Institute of Politics, where they will give us tools that will help us engage during the upcoming legislative advocacy, the upcoming legislative session. Please join us in thanking our speakers.
Thanks. Thanks, Trevin. I just want to take just a moment, too, as we get ready to launch on the legislative session. You know what starts on Tuesday? Did you know that? The 20th? It's always like the day after Martin Luther King Day. That's how you know when it's time to get going. What's interesting is I represent the university at the legislature. Hey, Natalie Tippett, can you raise your hand? That's Natalie Tippett's over there. So on the Hill, when you are up there, I hope this legislative session you're going to see us. We are the two people who are designated by the president and through law and executive order from the governor to who can represent the university on the Hill. I don't know if you would know that, but sometimes when you are up there, hopefully some of you will go up there, you got lobbyists everywhere. And who is actually representing these agencies? We're the two that represent the university. And there are, as of yesterday, almost just over 1,300 bill files opened. That is a lot. Can you imagine how much love we're going to get? We may get close to 1,400 bill files this year. Mostly of those, every single year, if history serves itself, there will be like 900 and some odd of those will actually get some committee airtime, some time on the floor, and then something just less than 600, 580-ish will actually become law. A lot of those will impact us here at the University of Utah. And that's why it's so great that you're getting to know the process right now. We have a state where we have, do you know how many legislators we have? 104. Was that what you were about to say? 104, 75 members of the House, 29 members of the Senate. And so you're going to hear all that from Nick today, but there's just a lot of power in knowing how the process works. My hope is you and ASUU, Trevin, thanks for bringing you here together today. We need our students. And I'm just going to make this offer to you after you learn about how the process works today too. If there's some legislation that you don't like, something you do love that you want to engage in, whether or not it's in the interest of the university or not, I'm just going to tell you, I will help you. Okay? If you got something for the session, say, I just want to know who I should talk to. I'm happy to help you with that, all right? Even if the university hates what you're doing, I'm going to tell you something good about how to engage, all right? Because that's the process. You get to have an opinion about whatever it is you want. You get to approach these however you want, and there's power in knowing how the process works. And that's why I mostly wanted to take a minute to welcome you today to the Hinckley Institute. We're completely nonpartisan. We just want you to get engaged, all right? Whatever it is, stay engaged. You're going to hear from the great Nick Cockrell here going forward, but stay in touch with me during the session, okay? It's got a lot of legislation, and it all starts running now, all right? Is that okay, Nick? Anything you want to say? Okay, we'll see you on the Hill, everyone. Okay.
Well, welcome everybody. Again, thank you for coming to the Hinckley Institute of Politics. My name is Nick Cockrell. So I'm our Managing Director of Community Engagement here at the Hinckley. I also have the privilege of being an instructor for some of you in this room. I teach Political Forum Series, which is Political Science 3910, focused on policy writing, speech, and rhetoric. Today, I'm really going to be focusing on to make sure we know how the legislature works, who makes up the legislature, who the decision makers are, and some practical tips and hints on how you can stay engaged, importantly, track the issues that you care about, know who your legislators are, even more. So, first, I want to ask you a question. How many of you have been up to the Capitol during a legislative session? Okay, maybe about a third of us, maybe a little less, maybe a quarter. Okay, those of you who went up to the Capitol, did you speak to any legislator while you were there? I don't, maybe like a couple hands, but even fewer. Okay, one important thing that I'm gonna keep emphasizing this entire hour is how easy and accessible the legislative process is. Our legislators are there to be responsive to us, their constituents, and some of it is kind of scary right at first to like get up there and request speaking time with legislator, or even to send them a text or an email. I know the first few times that I did it, I remember pretty vividly because it made me really nervous. It still makes me a little nervous every time I do it. So, now next question for you all. Who do you think is the most powerful body or actor in Utah governance and politics, right? So think of, we've got the governor, we've got the state legislature, we've got the courts, all right? Those are the three I want to talk about right now. Who thinks that the governor is the most powerful member of Utah leadership? Anybody? Okay, it's a leading question. Who thinks the legislature is the most powerful here in our state of Utah? Anybody else think another set of actors or group of people could be the most powerful figures in Utah? Yeah. The LDS Church, exactly. That's one that comes up a lot. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the predominant faith group here in the state of Utah and has a large role in public discourse and even discussions that happen in all level of governance and politics. So here is what Utahns said when they were polled about this recently. Oh, here we go. Give me one moment here. So this is a few years old at this point. But 32% of Utahns polled thought that the governor was the most influential, or how did they phrase this here, have the most influence in Utah. 33%, so just 1% more and within the margin of error, thought it was our legislative leaders. 12% city and county leaders. 9% thought others. 14% of respondents did not know. So in this room, you would agree with the very slight majority that this Deseret News poll found a few years ago. And I would tend to agree. The Utah legislature is and carries a remarkable level of power in shaping our everyday lives as Utahns, which is why it's so important to get involved. Jason teed this up a little bit. Let's talk about the structure of the Utah legislature right now. We have two chambers, the House and the Senate. This probably is familiar to any of you who are familiar with national politics. We have a House and Senate in Washington, D.C. as well. All right? Structure a little bit different in terms of number and also term length. In the Utah State House, there are 75 members, 29 members in the Utah State Senate. Right now, there are 61 members of the majority Republican Party and 14 members of the minority Democratic Party in the House, 22 Republicans, 6 Democrats, and 1 F in the Senate. Who knows what that one outlier is? Has anybody heard about this? Yes, so there is a third party that holds one seat in the legislature, the Utah Forward Party. I believe they used to be called United Utah Party, and I believe they merged with a second party a year or two ago to form this Forward Party. So we're in a unique situation right now that we have a third party legislator. All right, in terms of terms, Utah House, 2-year terms. They're up for election, all 75 of them, every even-numbered year. So this year, 2026, every single one of them who has chosen to run, some have not chosen to run, but those who have chosen to run again are up for re-election. Now, the Senate, on the other hand, these are 4-year terms. This is different than what we remember in national politics, right? Those are 6-year terms. Here in Utah, 4 years. Not every senator is up for election every 4 years, though. It's kind of split between 2 classes. So about half of our Senate is going to be up for election or re-election this year in 2026. But the other half of those seats, there's not going to be an election this year because they were just elected or re-elected in 2024, which means they're not up again until 2028, the next presidential cycle. Another quick interesting note about composition here. Legislative seats by gender. So this is last year, 2025, and there have been some changes this year as we go into 2026, but this is as updated as we could get right now. The Utah Senate, 7 of 29 members are women. 24 of the 75 members in the Utah House are women. So as you can see, there's still a big gender disparity in who is holding these seats in the Utah Legislature. How does this compare nationally? You know what? It's not as far off as maybe some of you could have been expecting. Utah largely follows the trend in female representation in the state legislature when compared to other legislatures nationwide. So, and again, this is just a reminder that every state has its own legislative body. So today we are focusing on Utah legislative process and the Utah legislature. We're not talking at all about Congress. I mean, that's what we see in the news so frequently and so often. And we're not talking about other states and their legislative processes right now, but just specifically Utah. Okay. So who are some key decision makers? Again, this is to set the stage for the rest of this hour here. I already used the words majority and minority. I'm going to use this a lot today. And majority party is, in this case, in the state of Utah, in both chambers, the Republican Party. But during official legislative business and in legislative leadership positions, the parties aren't mentioned by name, not officially, right? We know that the majority party is the Republican Party and the minority party is the Democratic Party. Whereas in California, by comparison, it's swapped. The majority party in their legislative bodies are the Democrats and the minority party are the Republicans. So House majority, these are the leaders of the Utah House of Representatives. The Speaker of the House, Mike Schultz, is the top official in the House. He assumed this position in 2023 and has been in this role since then. We also have second in charge, Majority Leader, Representative Casey Snyder, who's supported by Majority Whip and a Majority Assistant Whip. Who knows or can remember, if you know this, what the original role or idea, like what the Majority Whip or Minority Whip, what does the Whip do? What is their role in the legislative process? Yeah. Yeah. So importantly, especially in the majority, they want to know that their members are on the same page, or at least know which members are going to vote which way on the bills that are important to leadership here. This happens in all levels of government, but leadership wants to know if they have a bill priority, what that passage is going to look like, even before it goes to the floor for a vote. It's important that we know, or that they know, where their members are going to lie on a particular issue. So they play an important role in keeping their caucus organized and in line. That's another word, keyword here to make sure that you all know, caucus. So in the legislative context, there's the House Republican Caucus, the House Majority Caucus. This is the entire delegation of the members of the House Majority. So this is the 61 Republican elected members of the House. So if you hear me refer to the word caucus, that's what I'm talking to. Or if, the Democratic caucus in the Senate, just make sure you know that word. Just like there's majority leadership in the House, there's minority leadership in the House. And we have these 4 leaders, again, all elected as Democrats, serving in minority caucus leadership in the State House. Some of you, if you live in Salt Lake City or the Salt Lake area, maybe recognize these faces. They may be your representative. Legislative leadership in the Senate. The top official in the Senate is not Speaker of the Senate like we have Speaker of the House. His title is President. President Stuart Adams oversees operations of the Senate and has a lot of influence in policymaking at large in Utah. He's assisted by Majority Leader, Majority Whip, and Majority Assistant Whip. Similar structure to what we've already seen here. Other key players on the minority side: Senator Escamilla, Senator Kwan, Senator Plum, and Senator Reby. So take a second now, scan this code. I want to make sure everybody knows who their state senator and representatives are, all right? So scan this. You'll have to put in your address. Okay. So for those of us who are curious, if we put in our address that we are right now here at the Hinckley Institute of Politics, Central Campus Drive, 84112, all right, it immediately pulls up who the representatives are if you lived here in the Gardner Commons building. Hopefully nobody lives here in the Gardner Commons building, but if you want to know, that's who represents this part of the state. If you want to know where House District 22 extends, you can click and expand and see some district boundaries. Same with the Senate. If you want to know who, well, once you know who your senator is, and mobile experience might be a little different, but you can see, okay, where does Senate District 9 extend to and from? How many of you knew who your representative and senator both were before we did this just now? Okay, good. This is a good first step then. Lower these lights. This site too, we're going to be returning a lot to the Utah Legislative website throughout the course of today's discussion. The Utah Legislative website is an incredible resource. It's well designed and is the most effective and efficient way for you to stay involved, stay updated, and get involved. All right. So we know who represents us. We know some of the power players, some of the leadership, right? What other structural things are important for us to know? Well, let's talk about the session itself. Again, Jason teed this up a little bit at the beginning, but it's important to know Utah's legislature is a part-time legislature. Some states actually are full-time, where folks don't necessarily balance another full-time job, and they're meeting consistently and frequently throughout the year. Utah, however, only a 45-day annual session that runs from late January to early March every single year. So January 20th, 6 days from now, we are kicking off the 2026 legislative session, and those 45 days includes weekends. So it's not 45 business days, it's just 45 days straight till it ends on March 6th. And this is where a vast, vast majority of all legislative action occurs throughout the whole year in Utah. Every third Wednesday of the month, other months of the year, there is an interim meeting that is scheduled for the legislature to convene, deal with what may be pressing business or just like ongoing business. But that's only one day a month that this interim session happens. It's this 45-day session. It is so critical to our lawmaking process here. I think one thing that's interesting too is some states have really like toyed with this a little bit, or at least tested different things. I have some friends who live in Washington State, for example, and they have part-time legislature as well. But they have a short year, so some years are like a short legislative session, but then every other year they have a longer legislative session. So it really does vary by state. Utah, this is just what has been chosen and is what exists in our state law. Other structural things we need to know, right? We know we have 104 members of the House, or of the House and Senate combined, 75 House, 29 Senate. How are they organized, right? We know they're organized by their party affiliation, by majority and minority caucus, in other words, but they're also organized into committees. And committees are a nice and important way to like find and follow issues that you care about. If, for example, you are really passionate about public health or education, there are committees that handle those particular bills, and you can just really focus in and streamline like your efforts on those. 3 types of committees. Standing committees. These are, there's House standing committees and there's Senate standing committees that convene during that 45-day annual session I just talked about. These are committees that are open to the public. They offer opportunity for legislators to explore and discuss legislation. These are subgroups. It's not the entire legislature. Obviously, there are just certain committee members that are assigned to each committee. If you are interested in a particular bill or issue, right, you have to first figure out what committee you need to be following. And a committee hearing is perhaps the most direct and useful way to get involved in the legislative process. Committees offer opportunity for public testimony. Any member of the public can come speak for or against a particular issue. Advocacy groups and organizations often make their voice heard during standing committee meetings. Very important. Interim committees, I talked about what interim session was. That's that one day a month, every other month of the year that the legislature meets. There are separate committee assignments for those interim sessions, but similar in structure as standing committee, though they are joint between House and Senate. Appropriations committees. How many of you know what appropriations are in the context of lawmaking? Not going to ask you to define it, but just raise your hand if you know it. Okay. Well, good. We're going to go over that then. It is the legislature's responsibility to appropriate, review, and approve all funding that the state of Utah uses. So a little bit about the process. The governor every year does prepare a budget. The governor's budget is presented to the legislature, but it's not the governor who decides the final makeup and composition of that budget. It is the legislature. And appropriations committees deal specifically with those funding questions, deal specifically with the money. Each appropriations committee and subcommittee considers a specific portion of the budget. So the budget is split up into different topic areas, different issue areas. Maybe there's the Education's Appropriations Committee, for example. They deal with all the budgetary and money-related items to the education process. The budget ultimately goes through all of these processes and appropriations committees, and at the end of the legislative session, a final budget is passed and approved by the larger body. We'll go more into that in a minute, but just making sure we know what committees are. Jason talked about how many bill files are open this year. What did he say, 1,300 so far? That's a ton of bills that have been opened and will be considered during this legislature. But look at this trend line. This is from a great researcher down at BYU. Actually, his name is Professor Scott, and he's been tracking the number of introduced and passed bills every single year since 2007, this graph goes back. It's a steady increase, right? So 2025 session, just a year ago, 959 bills were introduced in the legislative process. That's different than just having a bill file opened. A bill file is its most beginning form. It's like we have an idea for a bill. let's get it drafted. But in terms of steps after that, once a bill is introduced into the process, gets assigned to committee, possibly a floor vote. 959 were introduced last year. Of those 959, 582 were passed. It's kind of a wild number when we just have 45 days in a session, which is why it's so important, like, to be on top of it when the session starts, even before the legislative session starts. All right, so Jason talked about his role in making sure that all University of Utah priorities and concerns and issues are like tracked and followed, and that they and his team are ready to advocate for the university on every given issue. When there's this many bills running around and being considered, it's a huge task to make sure you're tracking everything you need to. We'll go over the legislative website's ability to track the bills that you care about here in a minute as well, but I just want to make sure you know how big this is. How a bill becomes a law. All right, 10 steps here. We'll go quickly through these. 1, the idea is developed. I think it's important to know where these ideas come from. Shout out where you think an idea for a bill could come from. I heard constituents, personal experience. Yes. So I think bills and ideas for bills can come from anywhere. Legislators might have it from their own personal experience or background. They might have ideas, but often comes from constituents, might come from other government agencies that require specific support or need a bill passed to improve its function. Maybe there's special interest groups or lobbyists or even the governor that have been calling or asking for particular bills or issues to be addressed during the legislative process. So the ideas can come from anywhere. When I was a student, I had the privilege of working or interning at the Utah State Legislature. And I'll go over this legislative internship at the end of our time together here and maybe encourage you each to do it. But I remember working with my legislator who ran a majority of his bills that were inspired by his own constituents, who reached out to him, described their concern about a particular issue, even proposed a possible solution. And so it was like really that incredible experience for me to see, okay, this is really from the bottom up in this particular case. Like, he got these ideas from the people who voted for him to represent them. And that happens quite frequently in the legislature. Next up, after an idea is conceived, a bill is drafted. Who drafts the bill? It's not the legislator, him or herself. There's a team called the Office of Legislative Research and General Counsel, a full-time staff of attorneys who draft the bill idea into actual legislation that can be considered by legislators. Next up, bill is introduced. So after a bill is drafted, it's introduced into the legislature and referred first to what's called the Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee is an incredibly important and powerful committee to be aware of. The Rules Committee, one of the things they get to do is decide which standing committee the particular bill might get assigned to, when it gets assigned, or maybe if it even gets assigned to a committee at all, right? We talked about how 1,300 bill files open. That means there's going to be a few hundred, likely this year, that are not introduced. They're drafted, potentially, but maybe not introduced into the legislative process. Step 4, after the Rules Committee recommends which standing committee to go to, it receives that standing committee review where we get public input opportunity. Again, to re-emphasize this, the period that a bill goes into standing committee is, I think, the most important time for you to get involved on a particular bill or issue that you care about. This is where those legislators debate, and you can give public input. You can give input in person. That's always really effective if you have time to go up to the Capitol. You can also give input virtually. Over the last several years, they've really streamlined and done well at making it accessible to participate in the legislative process, even just from the convenience of your own laptop or phone, and give testimony or give your feedback or your input from wherever you are in the state or wherever you are in the world. Important here, the committee we often might hear the term like, is it passed out of committee? Did it not pass out of committee? The like official terminology that's used in this process is, does the committee make a favorable recommendation on the particular bill that's in front of it right now? And so if a majority of the people in the committee vote to give a favorable recommendation to that bill, it is very likely that it continues to the next step and it goes to the floor of either the House or the Senate. And that's just going to depend on which body it was introduced in. If it was a senator who started the bill, it's going to go to the Senate floor. If it started in the House, it'll go to the House floor. Ultimately, though, it will need to be passed by both chambers. The bill is debated in open session. And I already talked about this. Bill does need to pass both houses in the legislature. So if it goes through House committee, passes the House floor, then it needs to do the same thing on the Senate side. After that, the bill is prepared for governor's action. The bill receives governor's action. Those three, or those actions most commonly are what? You can sign to pass, or you can veto. Those are important. Those are like the two big ones that he can choose to do. And finally, the bill becomes effective. Usually legislation has like an effective date written into the legislation itself. Say like, this is effective June 30th, 2026. It's very unlikely that the bill will go into effect like immediately. Often it's written when it becomes effective. Any questions about this so far? Yeah.
So I've been tracking your bill that's gone through the Judiciary Interim Committee.
Yeah.
It's going to be in session. I'm curious, will it also be assigned a standing committee, or is it just okay with the interim?
Yes, it will be assigned to standing committee as well. The action that's taken on it in the interim committee will likely affect how much debate is allocated toward that particular issue, or maybe legislators' even viewpoints on it. But yes. Yep. Okay, any other questions? Okay. For the last 20 minutes or so together, I'm going to get out of PowerPoint mode. We're going to discuss a little more, and we're going to look at the legislative website. I mean, the first question that I hope all of you have already asked yourself or are asking yourself right now is, what matters to you? What are the issues that you care about the most? Whatever they are, lock that away and keep that in mind when you go explore the legislative website on your own time. Once you know what you care about, how do you get involved? Contact your legislators using letters, email, even phone calls or texts. Every legislator has a public profile on the Utah Legislative website that lists their contact information. It lists other important details about them. And you know what? They're pretty responsive for the most part. It's important that you contact your legislator, I believe. I see a lot of tendencies from people to want to contact a legislator that they think agrees with them the most, or that they do agree with the most, or that they look up to, or that they support. I think there's some value in that, but I think it's so much more effective to focus your advocacy efforts on your own legislator, especially given that legislators represent anywhere from 40,000 to 70,000 constituents. They're going to prioritize people who are their actual constituents, people who live in their district, right? Then if you can, go in person. This is a wild thing that we're able to do here in Utah, that you can go in person to our Utah. I mean, legislative processes are open across the country, but it's still wild to me that we can go up to the Capitol just as a private citizen, request to have our legislator meet with us by sending them a text or an email or even a note to them while they're sitting on the floor of the House or the Senate. See if they can jump outside really quick, meet you, hear your concerns that you might have about the bills or topics that are coming up. Things that make you an effective communicator here. Make sure you relay your concerns clearly, respectfully, and really importantly, with information and solutions. Having your facts and supporting info really adds credibility, and building and maintaining credibility in these conversations is of the utmost importance. So we all have legislation and politics can evoke a lot of feelings and a lot of gut reactions, and those are all valid to feel. But when you go in for a communication with a decision maker, make sure you have your ducks in a row, you're prepared. And honestly, especially here in Utah's legislative process, communicating respectfully, even with people that you disagree with strongly, can help you build bridges, maybe not immediately, but down the road, even more likely. Follow up persistently. Don't be afraid to follow up if you don't hear. Again, they've got tens of thousands of constituents that they might be balancing. Engage legislators early. You know what? This might be the best time for you to consider your actions for the 2027 legislative session. We're already in the midst of like this peak busy season for legislators in 26. Doesn't mean you can't reach out to them. You still should, but be persistent. Follow up. Even after the legislative session, if you have feedback or thoughts or concerns or advice that you'd want to share, keep in touch with them. Don't just keep in touch with them those 45 days of the year. Also importantly, encourage your friends, families, neighbors, stay involved, get involved in key legislative issues. All right. So now we're going to go to le.utah.gov. le.utah. Oh, I didn't quite type it all. Okay. So this is the website we already kind of got a sneak preview to earlier, and we're going to navigate it together for a little bit, make sure that we know where to find things. Front page here. Calendar is perhaps it's my most used tool, almost certainly. Let's look at the first day of the legislative session, January 20th. Let's see what's going on. All right. Gives an overview, describes this as the first day of the session, right? Also tells us what committee schedules are. Senate Judicial Confirmation Hearing, 9 a.m. Senate floor time. So floor time, that terminology is important to know. This is when the Senate, if they have floor time, all 29 senators, if they're present at the Capitol that day, are there on the floor together in their joint session. Or, yeah, in the larger session here. House chamber floor time from 10 to noon that day. You can see when all the committees are scheduled. If you need information about legislators and committees, you can look up here on their top menu under legislators. If you want a reminder who leadership is or who the roster of the entire House and the Senate are, even if you wanted to see a seating chart, which I think is really interesting, you can see where folks are assigned to sit during this particular session. Like, for example, you can look and you can say, okay, these seats, these are all the minority members, all the Democrats. They sit here in these two rows. So if you're there at the Capitol one day and you just want to identify and see where the people are, who the decision makers are, you can do that. The committees tab up here, right? If you want to know what standing committees exist, you can look through the list here. And I'm going to use House Education Committee as a particular example. The House Education Committee, all these members of the House have been assigned to serve here. If you have a particular issue, this is another piece of strategic communication you can work on as an advocate now and in the future. The chair of a particular committee on the issues that you care about has a lot of power and influence on those particular bills that come through their committee. So Education Committee, Representative Walter is the chair. Vice Chair, Representative DeFay. So those are two people, if you're a big education advocate, that you might want to keep on your radar and stay in touch with, build rapport with, be consistent communication with. On the committee schedule, on the committee page as well, you can see what the notice or schedules for upcoming meetings would be. Looks like they're scheduled to meet January 22nd at 2 p.m. You can see what the agenda might look like. Right now, it's just the notice, but once there's a list of bills that are being considered, you're able to, they'll update that page. But yeah. Other things that are important for you to know. If you need a reminder of most of what we went over today, down on the main page again, there's just a lot of really helpful links here. I talked about getting involved in a virtual committee meeting, potentially. There's a whole sheet here about the steps that you need to take to possibly give testimony or input during a committee hearing, even if you can't go to the Capitol in person. If you go to the Capitol in person, it's even easier. Make sure you know where the committee room is. Get there early. Make sure that you're prepared to get on the speaker's list if they're preparing one so that you can go give the testimony that you want to give. This is where you can find, different maps based on, right? So, I mean, redistricting has been a big issue in recent years, several years. So there's quick links to that. Most of the redistricting questions right now have been focused on congressional redistricting, our 4 congressional districts. So your state House and state Senate districts are not changing, or they have not changed since 2021. But if you're curious about the congressional redistricting process and things that have happened recently, there's some quick links there. Decorum rules, other things. On this calendar link, you can watch any committee hearing. It's live streamed, either audio or video, and the floor meetings, the floor time is streamed as well. Bill tracking, this is what I want to look at with you all now before we end our time together. I encourage you all to create a legislative login. Let's see. Oh. Well, I can't log in right now for some reason. I thought I knew my password. That's my old one that it's trying to make me do. Oh, I don't know why I did .gov. I'm .edu. There we go. All right. So I encourage you all to create an account. You can create an account up at the top right if you're on a desktop or a laptop. I believe it's going to be in one of the menu items as well if you are if you're on mobile. But once you have an account, you can start tracking the things that matter to you. So let's select a committee. Say, again, using education. Again, so I want to follow the House Education Committee because I really care about it. And what this does, this will send me an email every time an agenda is created or updated. So when the House Committee is getting ready for one of their many meetings that are coming up and they update that agenda, I can quickly and easily check, okay, what bills are on the agenda? Is there something that I'm worried about? Is there something I care about? Is there something that I support? Right? So I can add that. If you care about education, you know what else you might want to add? The Senate Education Committee. So I would do that, add, and then I'll get those notifications as well. It also gives quick links back to those committee pages that we were just at a minute ago. All right, if there are particular bills that you care about, right, you can add them to track. Let's just look at HB1. I have no idea what HB1 is. It might not have been made public yet. But you can add particular bills that you really, really care about. If we want to see what bills are presented or introduced already, 2026 bills, we can start seeing what's been out there. So yeah, it looks like HB1, my test there, it's not publicly listed yet. Maybe it's still being worked on, or maybe it's been withdrawn and was numbered before it was ever announced, potentially. But HB11, HB stands for House Bill, is titled Dyed Diesel Fuel Search Amendments. You can see who's running it. And then when this was last updated, which was December 2nd, 2025. Other acronyms that are important to know, right? HCR, House Concurrent Resolution. House Joint Resolution is HJR. And then Senate has similar, Senate Bill 1, Concurrent Resolution, Joint Resolution, Senate Resolutions. The stuff that you probably care the most about are the straight up bills, Senate bills, House bills. Resolutions don't carry the same effect on actual law as a bill does. We can go into that maybe another time if we have it. Another quick thing to navigate here. let's look at this second one here. Representative Doug Welton. He is running one called Outdoor Recreation Accessibility Amendments, HB 12. Representative Welton is a member of the majority. I happen to know that he's a teacher down in Utah County. So let's see.
Does he still teach at Salem?
I think he does. Was he a teacher of yours?
Yeah, I took his class a few times. He's one of my favorites.
Nice. No, he's helped us out with some of our like K through 12 initiatives that we do here at the Hinckley Institute. So I believe he still teaches. At least he did last year.
He taught Japanese current events.
Yeah.
Debate.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's awesome. So Outdoor Recreation Accessibility Amendments, he's sponsoring. This is the homepage for that particular bill here. This lists the text of the bill. Oftentimes, bill text can get really dense. All right? But you can get a good idea of what this bill will do by looking at general description and highlighted provisions. The bill addresses recreational infrastructure for accessibility in state parks. Okay, so we know that's generally what this does. I mean, the title kind of gave us that anyway. You can check the status of this bill should things move forward. All right, so the 2nd of December, the bill was numbered but not distributed. Also that same day, within the same minute, it was numbered and publicly distributed. So there's been no other legislative action taken on it, but as soon as it's been assigned to a committee or it gets a committee vote or a floor vote, you'll see step by step every single thing that has happened to this particular bill. And then you can see what hearings or debates have happened on it or are coming up. Any questions about any of this? I know this is a lot, but this is, I hope, helpful just knowing and understanding how to keep updated on what's going on. I encourage you all to go up to the Capitol sometime this session. Go with a friend, go with a coworker, go with a classmate. Even just sit in on a committee if you're not ready to testify about something yet. And trust me, that is an intimidating prospect if it's the first time doing it. But go watch, understand how it works, and then break down that little barrier for yourself. Okay, I've seen it done. I've seen how people can give their testimony or give their input to a public bill. Now I can think about how I would do it if the opportunity arose for me. Okay. Well, with that, I want to open up for a few questions. I have a few things that I want to make sure I hit on at the very end of our hour here. But any questions or things we want to dive into together here before we do that? Yeah.
Do you personally have any sources, books, or online sources where you can learn more about the minutiae of what's going on? For somebody who just maybe just learned about a few things you just said, is there any books that you've read or sites that tell you a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, you know what? In terms of Utah politics, admittedly, I don't have an actual book recommendation for you to better understand. There are, I don't have a book recommendation, but for me, the way I stay involved and just make sure I know is I follow reporters that I trust, news organizations that I trust, but even more, you find a specific reporter who does a good job reporting on the legislature, follow them on social media or just look them up specifically to read their articles, right? There are some people who do an incredible job. Other things and other shortcuts that I really, really like, and I recommend all of you to do this too, choose an organization, maybe a nonprofit or advocacy group, or maybe a political group that aligns with your values and aligns with your interests. The odds are they're gonna be tracking the bills that you would care about as well. And they might be able to distill, decipher, give summary to the issues that matter to them, and then help you understand more about what they're concerned about or things that they might be supporting. And then you can say, okay, hey, this particular group, I align with them. If they're worried about this bill, I think I might be worried about it too. They describe A, B, and C reason that this bill would be bad for Utah. It makes sense to me. I also am now opposed to this bill. Let's see how I can get involved as an individual. Whether it's the Sutherland Institute or the ACLU of Utah or the Better Utah Institute, whoever it is, these groups are doing a lot of the hard work of tracking bills that fit in their issue areas. So find a group that resonates with you, and use that as kind of a shortcut. You don't have to go through every single hundreds of bills to know which ones you support and oppose. The big ones usually get picked up by reporters or by issue groups that are advocating for or against them. Yeah.
So, I live in a district where my legislators agree with my politics.
Yeah.
But a lot of that happens to be in the minority.
Sure.
So, what's the best way for someone who lives in a minority district to have some kind of influence on the majority senators and House representatives?
Totally. So I think I did say, and I do still stand by it, it's so important to maintain contact with your legislators. But that strategic outreach to a committee chair or vice chair on a particular issue that you care about, you know, the chair is going to be a member of the majority party in that case and have a lot of influence over the decision-making process. Or to attend a committee hearing, right? Making sure that you're voicing your opinion publicly to a group of legislators, not just yours that may already agree with you on the particular issue. I mean, that's the biggest thing I'd recommend is be strategic in your outreach. I mean, it's always tempting to be like, I'm going to email or call the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House, because certainly they are the most influential decision makers in the legislature. But by looking one step below at those committee chairs, I think you might get some more of that response that you want. Yeah. What other questions y'all have? Yeah.
How are the standing committees formed? Like, who chooses the members?
Yeah. So they're assigned in the House by the Speaker of the House and his leadership team, and in the Senate by the President of the Senate and his leadership team. Yeah. Yeah. It is often a collaborative process too. Like sometimes the minority leadership, so the Democratic leadership, might make recommendations or requests for their members to be on specific committees, and that often works out well, but it does ultimately stand with the majority to make those committee assignments. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah. Yeah. So first and foremost, it just matters where it's introduced. So if Representative Welton is the one who sponsored this bill, and he did, it becomes House Bill 12, HB. If, let's say, Senator Cullimore and Sandy, it's his idea and it's his bill, then it's SB. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so there's always a chief sponsor of a bill. There are always going to be co-sponsors, and also when a bill is introduced in the House, so Doug Welton, he's the chief sponsor, and it's a House bill. But once it goes to the Senate, or to go to the Senate, it does need a Senate sponsor. So he might call up one of his Senate colleagues and say, all right, we're getting this through the House process. I need you, my Senate colleague, to be the Senate sponsor of this. So it is collaborative in that way between bodies. And you know what is interesting too? The strategy involved in choosing your floor sponsor. And floor sponsor is that person in the other chamber who is sponsoring your bill over there. You see this a lot among Democrats. For example, the minority, they might be the chief sponsor of a particular bill, and some really effective Democrats or have found a floor sponsor, maybe in the majority party, in the Republican Party, that's going to run that bill in the other chamber. And that makes it like a truly bipartisan effort in that way. And that happens somewhat frequently, and it's interesting to see. Whether even if you're in the same like caucus, you're in the same party as they are, choosing the right floor sponsor in the Senate can make a big difference. Some senators, just like some House members, are more effective and some are less effective than others. Yeah. Yeah.
I saw a tab for decorum, so when it comes to walking in and if you want to watch one of these events, is there like a sign up? Is there security, a dress code?
Totally.
What's the rules there?
Yeah. So I mean, there is no official dress like code. It's not like you have to be in business casual or business or anything to attend legislative hearings. There are certainly rules about maintaining order. So this is written in a legislative fashion, but importantly, first thing that's said is the chair shall preserve order and decorum during any legislative committee, and things that are flagged are standing, waving, yelling, cheering, whistling, clapping, loud noises, food and drink, musical instruments, any item that may require excessive cleanup, and more. So look, it's a pretty open to all space up at the Capitol, but there are the rules of decorum. If you're being disruptive, or if some of your action is being perceived as threatening in some way, of course that's not allowed. Any final questions before I let you go? Okay. Well, the last thing I'll say is I really, really hope that each of you continues to follow the issues that you care about, find ways to get involved, talk about the issues with your friends, your family, fellow students. Those of you who are students here right now, also consider doing a legislative internship at the Utah State Capitol. The Utah Capitol is a very interesting place to work, and you don't really, to me, being up there is the only way to fully understand the process. You can do a part-time internship, a local internship at the Hinckley Institute during a legislative session, but even more, I'd like you to consider a full-time experience that we offer each spring for undergraduate and graduate students. This is an experience where you're assigned to work with a particular legislator or maybe with an executive office, and you are kind of their point person for legislative matters. I talked about working at the legislature several years ago. I was a student, like many of you in this room now, and I was assigned to work for a legislator, and I was her only staffer for the whole 45 days. So I dealt with constituent relations, policy research, scheduling and organizing, making sure that floor speeches are written and revised or edited as we needed, right? Such an incredible experience. So if it's something that you're interested in, do it. It's open to all majors, whether you're political science or social work or anywhere else on campus. Definitely do it. This application would open in the fall, in August, and it would close in September. And you get a stipend. You get a little more than $4,000 stipend for doing this particular internship. It's for credit. You can maintain a full-time credit load by doing a legislative internship, but you're just at the Capitol full-time working, getting this incredible experience. So with that, thank you for sitting here. Thank you for joining me today. Get more involved. Come to more Hinckley forums. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you guys for coming. There's still more food outside. Feel free to stick around, ask questions. Thanks.